How far can you be taken? Are you a believer? Are you out there and you're wondering how far people can go for the sake of meeting Christ? What is the desperation? How much do you believe the word? It is Paul Mackenzie wasn't usually as shabby as we are seeing it currently in the media. He was a well-composed man that during his days when his church was flourishing a few years back in Malindi. Paul Mackenzie started this church back in 2003 as a small evangelical center alongside his wife Joyce Muikamba. He wasn't a shaggy and confused person as he graces our screens nowadays. Paul and his wife moved to a village called Migingo in Malindi, where he set up a church in a walled compound, where his family still lives to date. His wife Joyce helped him preaching as a co-pastor, and Mackenzie claimed to have the power to speak to God directly. In his sermon, he claimed to deliver words as given by God himself. Around 2016, Mackenzie acquired a TV station after one of his followers, Kennedy Mwacharo, sold his property in Lamu at a throwaway price of 20 million and handed over all the money to him, abandoning his family and responsibilities. The property was valued at 100 million Kenya shillings back then. The man would die 2 months later in unclear circumstances. Heading with the money to Mackenzie Shakahola Church, Betty is suspected to be amongst the dead bodies being retrieved in graves in Shakahola. Several cases of people selling their properties and giving Mackenzie as they await to meet Jesus will then follow. The recent one being Betty, an air hostess who quit her 11-year job and sold a lifelong investment at a throwaway price of 7 million Kenya shillings. Heading with the money to Mackenzie Shakahola Church, Betty is suspected to be among the dead bodies being retrieved in graves in Shakahola. It is claimed that Mackenzie used the money that Kennedy Mwacharo gave him to buy pieces of land in Malindi and Mombasa, 2 vehicles, and started a TV station. Through this TV station, Mackenzie reached so many people, and his teachings were basically on end times, evilness of Western ways of life like medical service, education, food, sports, and music. Mackenzie dwelt on the uselessness of life and stressed on the afterlife. He preached about the second coming of Christ, which according to him was so soon. His timeline of the second coming was always less than a year. He also focused on the wrath that awaited those who would be alive by then. In 2018, Dr. Ezekiel Mutua through KFCB ordered for the immediate closure of the TV station. This was a year after Mackenzie and his wife had been arraigned in court, knowing and unlawfully promoting extreme belief system for the purpose of facilitating ideologies to advance religious and social change. It is unclear how this case ended, and despite the orders to shut down the TV station, Mackenzie continued with it, something that showed how connected he might have been. Remember, at a point he threatened the then Kilifi women rep Aisha Jumwa when she questioned some of his teachings and why he kept sick people in the compound instead of taking them to the hospital. In 2019, Mackenzie would again hit headlines when 4 siblings from Mumias left home for his church, never to be seen again. This, plus the pressure put on him to close unregistered school he operated in his compound, promoted him to move from Migingo to Shakahola. He closed the church, sold some of his vehicles, then bought the Shakahola land in the name of starting a farming venture. People who went to see him at where his previous church used to be in Migingo were referred to his Shakahola farm. And according to the neighbor, a lot of people went there, but few left. Mackenzie had fasting supervisors who would monitor the poor souls in the bush as they starved to death. These are some of the same people who work as undertakers for him. It is claimed that while leaving Migingo and closing his church, he sold the TV station and one of his vehicles to Pastor Ezekiel of New Life, and even some of the evangelizing tools Not that Pastor Mackenzie is not living with his family in Shakahola. The family live in Migingo village in a gated compound where he had his church, and he has been putting up another beautiful family home few distance from Malindi town. As he brainwashed other people and their children to die in order to meet Jesus, his family is living their best from what the fools give him as they prepare for the holy journey. Remember, most of these people are fasting in the bush day and night, facing harsh weather conditions and other risks. Mackenzie led a troop of believers into believing that Christ is coming soon. People get into a belief that it is actually happening, that it is possible that these people believe that Mr. Mackenzie talks to God direct. And they have been in a position where they believe that if they sell everything and hand over to this man, their life is going to change. They are going to meet Christ. They are going to pray and confess for 100 days of fasting, while the man in question has a family that feeds, eats well, is protected, and live a full life. Bodies have been retrieved from his farm of people that died and are buried. And to think that this man was going to be bailed out of jail with only 10,000 shillings, it's sickening. And what even worries me more is that the church out here, the religious leaders out here, are not speaking about this. They are not condemning this thing. What is the role of the church? What is the role of the leaders in the church? Are you commissioned? Are you a believer? Are you a pastor? What is your role in this? How can you help people to get out of such brainwash? How can we rescue our very own? Because we are getting into sick times. Our world is ending in ways that we can defect. If we can get upright leaders that teaches the word genuinely and in truth and in spirit, then our world will be a better space. Learn to read your Bible. Learn to serve your God. Understand everything from God, and always pray that God gives you a revelation through the Bible. As much as you have a religious leader above you, do not be brainwashed. Do not trust in the words of man. Trust in God. That's that for now. This is All Things Rosa. Please subscribe.